Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely, and with me today is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, who's also host of RT's talk show, Crosstalk. Well, today is the morning after the night before, and a very inconclusive morning it is. Some people, though not us, we're expecting a decisive outcome. And we would note at this time who the president of the United States will be. We don't know that. There are a number of states that are undecided, and we really don't even know whether they will ever be decided by means of voting or by the courts stepping in. The election held very few surprises. The firmly blue state.
No surprises for our circle.
For
I
our
think
circle.
there's a lot of people that are surprised.
Yes, I think that's a very good point. Yes, I will come to that. Yes, as far as the blue states went by and large blue, the red states went by and large red. The one shocker was the flipping of Arizona. That was certainly astonishing. And there may be some things that we don't yet know about what happened, because it was quite an unusual result. And the way Fox News called it ahead of time, ahead of all of the rest of the media, was surprising. And so there may be things that we have yet to learn about what happened in Arizona. The polls were spectacularly wrong. And here we need to plug ourselves, because we at the Gaggle have been expressing considerable skepticism about pollsters, their methods, their biases. So I hope that we managed to get our audience used to the idea that that the polls are not to be relied on.
We get it right,
and we got it right. But now the battle is joined, and it's going to be quite a serious and a bitter fight. Okay, Peter, so let's start off. What's your take?
Well, I think first and foremost, irrespective of who wins, but the most important takeaway from this election is the following, and it's very simple. Donald Trump is not an aberration, okay? We've been told that for 4 years. It was a fluke, okay? But no, it wasn't. It's actually very consistent with what the electorate was interested in 2016 and in 2020. Another, and you already mentioned, the polls were wildly off. A lot of people need to be fired. This is ridiculous now. Mm-hmm. Number three, the liberals, well, they gaslit themselves during this election, okay? How many times did you hear landslide and blowout, And, there was, I won't mention his name because it's not necessary, but a professor friend of mine, quite liberal, on Facebook wrote a couple of hours ago, it is so close. There's something very wrong with this country. No, the country's divided. That's why we have politics, okay? To manage and navigate differences, okay? Who says it's supposed to be easy, all right? So, those are my major takeaways. But Trump is not an aberration. Hello, everybody. That we've been talking. What did we go through, George? Impeachment. We were going through impeachment a few months ago. Does anybody remember that? Okay, was foreign policy ever really mentioned during this campaign? Joe Biden was one of the Iraq War cheerleaders. Remember that? Okay, one of the things that I find really disappointing, and I've lamented on the Gaggle and on Crosstalk, and say, where's the policy? What they did is they made us run on emotion, because Trump is an emotional character. That's how he's perceived, okay? That all he does is create anxiety and hatred and all of these other things. And that's projected on him, okay? And the media does that, okay? What the media does is focus on him as their opposite, is that they are virtuous and he has no virtue. Well, their coverage shows you they have no virtue whatsoever. It's the same professional managerial class that thinks they're so superior to everyone else and they have all of the answers. Well, the last 50 years, they haven't had very many real answers to our real problems. As a matter of fact, they are the problem. These people are the problem. And the election is for everyone, not just for themselves. And that's what this election was. It was about themselves.
Yes, there's no question. And as far as the Democrats are concerned, this is the second consecutive election that they have basically failed to defeat decisively a reality TV star and real estate tycoon. Whatever the outcome here, this was an extremely close election. And all of the claims from 2016, Russia, 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 Putin, 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 they still couldn't pull this off in any decisive fashion. Moreover, the Democrats had the media batting firmly on their side throughout, as manifested in the last few weeks of the campaign, when the media sat on the very important story of the Biden family influence peddling, foreign registered foreign registration agent business, and the fact is that if they hadn't had this media help, the Democrats would have been beaten. I mean, if even with all this effort, you still can't pull this off.
I think you can look at it counterintuitively, though, and this is something I have noticed ever since the deplorable statement by Hillary Clinton, is that people take umbrage being talked down to. Okay, so the gaslighting that the media did do to the public, there were so many other people saying there, God damn it, stop it. I'm sick and tired of your elitism. Okay, you don't live where I live. You don't have my values, and I'm not going to bend to you. See, that's the message all the time. Is you have to become like us, and that's so insulting. They're saying you must be converted. Okay, and they're saying I'm happy with my own faith. Okay, so I mean the media in its attacks on Trump incessantly, I think creates kind of a subconsciousness, is that you beating up on this guy all the time, and he is goofy and he's an egomaniac. He has so many flaws. Okay, but they're constant attacking on him, they took personally. Look at it's you and I talked about this in great depth a couple of days ago. You can't deny the enthusiasm people have for him. Okay, and it's one of those things is that, you know, I mean, I'm not in the habit of mentioning Michael Moore, but, you know, right before the 2016 election, you know, he said this is going to be the biggest middle finger election in history. And he comes from a progressive position, okay? And I think it just repeated itself. Is that, you know, this is the last thing we have. You've taken our jobs away. You've taken our religion away. You've taken our sense of family away. You've taken everything from us, but we have the vote. That's the last thing we have. Right. And you'll probably take that away from us eventually too, okay? And people used it, okay? And I'm not giving Trump a defense here. I'm trying to look at it forensically and how, you know, what's the causal relationship here? So my point is that the media brought this on to themselves again.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that's that very point that you just made is something that the media have failed to grasp. Is that those tens of thousands of people who attend those rallies, what they see in Trump is someone who will protect them. Now, maybe he won't be able to, but they see someone who's going to try to protect them, protect their jobs, protect them from illegal aliens committing crimes, protect them from unfair competition, protect them from persecution from the self-righteous Obama types in the Justice Department, protect their way of life, protect their moral values. Trump, they see in Trump as somebody who is on their side. And that's not something that they see in the case of the Obamaites in the Democratic Party.
It shouldn't be trivialized. I think more than protection, I think the highest level of that is an acknowledgement that they exist.
Right.
That it's extraordinary. Is that he, you know, I noticed in some of the clips of the rallies, for better or worse, whatever you think of Donald Trump, he feels comfortable with these people. Those people feel comfortable with him. You don't see a stiffness, okay? I mean, I don't know if you saw it, but somebody did this YMCA video of him,
Yes,
which of course, all the snotty, liberals will just say, look at that clown, look at that, that rube. But I can tell you half the country and say, that guy is the most powerful man in the world and he's at ease with himself. I mean, how many people in public life are like that? See, the thing is that what they don't get, what they don't like, is that his transparency. He's just a transparent guy. Now, does it mean, when you pull out these, like a truth detector on Trump, Trump has his way of looking at the world and he has a way of expressing himself. And those that understand him, they kind of give him a handicap in that area. They're not the ones that are, gonna, go right into Google and see if it's true. I mean, a lot of people say, well, so he is the superlative president. Everything is the greatest, most beautiful, and all. You get used to it, okay? But your point of protecting people, I think that's so important because the coasts and the media, they don't even acknowledge them. They're like people they're like pagans that you just have to, oh God, they're still around here.
And that particularly came out in 2015, 2016, at the time of the Islamic terrorism that was pervasive in Europe and in the United States. And when he said, well, I'm just going to close the border, I mean, and no one comes in. And of course, the media screamed, oh my God, bigotry, xenophobia, racism, Islamophobia, whatnot. But what people saw in that was that he was going to protect them. I am going to protect you from terrorism. And I think that was important. While they get these self-righteous, sanctimonious lectures from Obama about, well, we mustn't be Islamophobic, and this is a great world religion, and blah blah blah. His Trump's attitude was not, I'm not going to give you a boring lecture about the virtues of Islam. My concern is you, and I'm going to protect you. And I think that people responded to that in the way that they don't respond to Obama's self-righteous blather.
And if we could just have a sidebar right here. Obama deported more people than Trump ever has. Okay, do your fact checking. All right. Now, another thing that I'm going to be looking at the forensics of this, the autopsy of it, because I think by now my mantra is the realignment, and I see this. I mean, Trump introduced it, or at least shed light on it. Is that the Republican Party, knock on wood, is going through a real transformation of representing working people and the working class, because it is basically now coming down to that, okay? Which is a good thing, because it's not, and as people on the left are always saying, it's these white, uneducated voters that like Trump. Now we're finding out that a lot of Hispanics do. We're going to have to check out what the African-American vote was, and the other, they always focus on the votes. What about Asians and things like that? I think that it's going to be very interesting, because that is a viable big tent policy. The Democrats, oh my God, will they finally have an autopsy about the recklessness and arrogance of their approach to the electorate. Okay, there's got to be a reckoning there. If Trump beat him twice, and on top of it, let's go down ballot. There's no blue wave, George. No. Where's the blue wave?
That's a very big thing. That remember, the prediction was, with cast iron certainty, not only that it would be a big blowout Biden win, but the Democrats would capture the Senate. That hasn't happened. Republicans have retained the Senate. All of those seats that the Democrats were going to capture, they didn't capture any of them. They're all back. Everyone's back. Even Lindsey Graham is back. McConnell's back.
Even Lindsey Graham.
Exactly.
The thing is that how I feel about Lindsey Graham. He's, Dr. Heckled and Mr. Hyde, depending on the issue here. But his opponent has spent more money than any other Senate campaign in history. Right. And of course, at least from what I have been told, you can fact check me on this, that money, South Carolina, it's a nice place. I've been there. But it's not New York and it's not California when it comes to money. Okay. His opponent got a lot of outside money. So they're, outside meddling again in that sense. Okay. Also, I'm going to be waiting for the blame game to start. And is it going to be the Macedonians this time, or is it going to be, you know, another group? Okay, maybe some Maltese people, because I like that word.
Yeah.
Maybe they threw influence there. And of course, the, you know, curtain is, Putin's always forever behind the curtain. I just have to wonder if people have just become numb to all of that. Okay, because there is no blue wave, okay? America is a broken place. It's broken. This is what this election result to this point, as you and I speak, tell us. It's broken.
Right. And we will see how broken it is with what's happening in the vote. I mean, if we're looking at Pennsylvania, now in Pennsylvania, Trump is ahead by some 700,000 votes. The Democrats say, "Oh, we're going to take Pennsylvania," but if we look at these numbers, for Biden to be able to win Pennsylvania, as things stand, he would have to win something like 70% of the votes left to be counted, which seems almost impossible. Therefore, you have to think that the Democrats are planning to steal the election. I mean, you know, they for some reason they stopped counting votes in Philadelphia. They stopped counting votes in Atlanta. I wonder why they did that. Maybe they know how many votes they need to find, and they needed a little bit of extra time to find these missing votes to be able to overcome Trump's advantage. Same thing goes in Michigan as well. Trump is quite a way ahead. Detroit, they stopped counting the votes.
You know, I'm so sick and tired of the left always saying it's Republicans that do voter suppression. These are all democratically run municipalities and cities and boards and all that. I mean, you know, they do this. I mean, see, you know, that's like you can't unring a bell, okay? And they better remember that, because you know, these are knowable things. These are things you can learn. Okay. And I remember I had a guest on Crosstalk. It was in 2018. He was running against what was the woman's the DNC chairman, Wasserman Schultz. He was running against her, and it was a really tight election. And he got money together for a recall, but to no avail, because, well, the clerk of the election committee destroyed the ballots. Okay, no recall. Okay, right. And that's what they do. That's what happens here. Okay, but what I do not like the idea. I'm very clear with you. I don't like this lawfare thing. I really don't like it. Okay, I remembered in 2000, and it's not. Again, it's undermining what people, one of the few things people have left, and that's the ability to vote. Okay, I hope it can stay out of the courts.
Well, I don't know how
because then it lowers the legitimacy.
I don't know how you can still keep the courts out, because there's no question the Democrats are going to try and steal this. I mean, the stakes are high. I mean, if they get Pennsylvania, then they pretty much have won the election. So the stakes are going to be very high. And yeah, there is going to be a legal fight over which votes are counted, because in Pennsylvania, the rules are so loose that, I mean, unless there's actually a postmark dated after the election, they can pretty much accept it. So any vote can just simply be there. Oh, well, there's no postmark, so fine, let's count this vote. So given the looseness of the rules, you get a sense that, hey, there's going to be a real scope for stealing this election. So there's no question that the courts are going to get involved.
Yeah, I did a crosstalk last week, ending one of my introduction is how many people will say "not my president" after this election.
Well, they will.
And again, we're still in the middle of this process here. But another thing, and again, I'm kind of tired of all these political talking heads talking about our antiquated election system. Yeah, well, do something about it, okay? Because these laws are catered to curry favor, okay? You can basically interpret what you want. That's not what an election is supposed to be. And kind of dovetailing into that, is all of this brewing violence. Okay, I right before we convened here, I checked on that, and yes, some cities are beginning to experience unrest. These are not Trump voters that are doing this. Okay, the summer of rage wasn't Trump supporters. Okay, now I mean a lot of people on Fox will say they're Biden voters. I won't go that far. Okay, they're certainly troublemakers and people, and they should be dealt with. Okay,
Right.
so but I mean this again, you know, I predicted this with you months ago. There's going to be no easy ending to this here, but the fact, going very back to the beginning, the closeness of it all, that's what really gets my attention here, is that this is not a fluke. This is real. It's very real.
Yes, yes, that's right. And well, that's why the violence will not be spontaneous violence. This will be very well orchestrated violence. I mean, these are well-funded groups. It's not that easy just to have all sorts of equipment at your disposal and, you know, organize riots. So they will happen, and the goal is to create the public atmosphere that Trump lost the election, Trump must step down, otherwise Trump is trying to steal the election. And so and these you can get, you know, you can always get people out on the street. My God, Trump is trying to steal the election. Let's go burn something down. So I think this is this is the fate. And now, of course, we'll get the interesting question: will the military remain loyal to Trump? I mean, if he starts saying, if the violence gets out of hand and Trump says we need to call in the National Guard, you know, what will Esper at the Department of Defense do? Will he obey Trump's orders?
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is you said, you know, people will be told that Trump is trying to steal the election. Again, that's projection. No, they're trying to steal the election. It happens all the time, all the time. It's, right. I mean, the thing is what I always find very curious, George, is that this professional managerial class, they think so highly of themselves, but they're not very smart, are they? Okay, I mean, you can see through what they're doing all of the time. All right, I mean, you know, look at compare the campaigns. Other than masks and I will treat more friendly, what did Joe Biden stand for? He didn't stand for anything. You know why? Because if he said what he stood for, his coalition would collapse, okay? Because Joe is just there to get across the line, okay? And then he will be dealt with, okay? I'm sure, you know, he'll get like a presidential seal jacket, you know, a weekend over at Camp David, and then he can go back to Delaware. Thanks, Joe.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, that without question, that was the idea. That's why they selected him. They thought he is electable. None of the others would be able to beat Trump. He can beat Trump. You know, he's a political heavyweight. He's been around. He's a safe pair of hands. People trust him. People like him. He will get us over the finish line in the way that Sanders wouldn't, Beto O'Rourke wouldn't, Elizabeth Warren wouldn't. He's the one who's going to win this election.
Certainly not Spartacus.
No, certainly not Spartacus. And that was it. And so, in a way, the Democrats, you know, signed the kind of devil's pact, much as they did in 2016. Sanders would have probably done better against Trump than Hillary Clinton did, but they thought, oh, Hillary Clinton, safe choice. You know, no problems with her. She'll get us over the finish line. So, well, you know, whatever happens, I don't think the Democrats will do any soul searching, much as they didn't do it in 2016. You know, then they blamed everything on Russia. Russia could still make a comeback in this election. You know, that's still on the back burner, whether Putin will make some sort of a comeback. But at this stage, you know, the goal of the Democrats will be to try to steal this election. You know,
the interesting thing is when we look at what the powers that be. I mean, I'm including the Republican never Trumpers and the media and the Democrats and all of that. Just look what they threw at this guy for 4 years. I mean, again, irrespective of you feel about his politics and his personality, I can't think of anyone that could have taken it, okay, and I mean, on a daily basis and threw it right back at them, okay, and in every trick in the book. I mean, the deep state, you know, they went deep on this guy and they still didn't pull it off, Okay,
Right, right. No,
extraordinary.
no, it is extraordinary. He is a force of nature. I mean, it's like when I first became aware of Trump, way back when. I mean, you had to admire even then his relentlessness. I mean, he just everything just sort of washes over him. People mock him, people attack him, and he just keeps going. I mean, these rallies. I mean, we have 4 a day. This is a man in his 74 years old. He has 4 rallies a day, and he doesn't even lose his voice. I mean, that's the amazing thing. I mean, his voice just remains as strong as ever. And then he's back in the White House and phoning into Fox and Friends, after about 3 hours of sleep.
There was a clip I saw. It was on Fox, and it had Kamala Harris at some kind of small event, because all of their events were small, and how it was in the South, and she did her pretend Southern accent, okay, yeah, like Hillary did, and yeah, that's it. When they have the Iowa caucus, everybody shows up with the cowboy hat and wearing the regalia and all that. Trump, wherever he goes, just wears a suit, and he never changes his voice. He's, if he's in a black church, he doesn't go cultural, or he doesn't appropriate something. He just shows up in his, $3,000 suit as he always does. Okay, see, that is the authenticity that his supporters like. Okay, and again, you may disagree with his politics, but as he is an authentic person in his own way, he's a force of nature. I think that's absolutely spot on, okay? Because you and I have been watching this kind of stuff for a very long time, and there's no one quite like him, okay? No. I think the only person I think can go back and maybe LBJ. I mean, because he was just kind of a people's guy too.
Right, yes, right. But the problem with LBJ was that, although a brilliant congressional leader, he wasn't much of a kind of a public figure. He was unable to project any kind of self-assurance.
And he was behind the scenes guy.
Yeah. In private, one-on-one, he was brilliant. He could twist arms and bully people.
And he could rig an election too. And he would brag about it.
That's right. And he kind of explain, rigging election means you find out how many votes do you need to win the election, and then you find those votes. So now, okay, I need 500 votes. Okay, let's go find.
My favorite story from LBJ in elections is this, and this is a true story. It was in one of his congressional elections. It was before the Senate, and so he determined how many votes he needs. So they went to a county cemetery to get the names, and so he's with his guys, and they're writing down the names, and all. Then one of his guys walked over, one of the tombstones had fallen on his face, and he just stepped on it and moved on. And LBJ said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Lift that up. This guy's got as much right to vote as anyone else in this cemetery."
Exactly. Yes. The graveyard vote. Finally the graveyard vote has come in.
Well, I think what we're I guess the next stage in all of this here is it going to go to the courts? If there's anything else going to be called? Personally, I think that this was on their whiteboard. I think that if it gets to this point, then what they do is they shut it all down. They take all the energy out of it and put it in stasis and figure out what their next move is going to be. But they do that at their peril. Because these people that voted for Trump, we should point out to everyone, the voter turnout was stellar. I mean, we're looking at 2/3 of eligible voters going out. That's in American in presidential politics. It hovers between 49 and 51, something like that. This is in the high 60s. Okay, right. So there shows that there was a lot of determination out there. So Democrats, you've screwed everything up going after this man every step of the way.
Right.
Maybe show us a little bit of a learning curve. Be careful what you do.
Well, they will not learn, but you're absolutely right, because if they do manage to get this election, first of all, Trump isn't going away, and his followers aren't going away, and he will become an alternative leader. He will say, this election was stolen from me. My presidency was stolen from me. I was from day one, Obama tried to destroy me. And he will have a responsive crowd. And now, no doubt, a Biden administration will probably try to do something about it. Maybe they try to arrest him for sedition or whatever. But that would, if they try to do that, then the country really would be in a state of civil war. I mean, any attempt to
Yeah,
arrest
but
or whatever. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, this would be catastrophe.
But that just shows their weakness. They're afraid of free speech. They're afraid of people expressing their opinion. They are so afraid of Donald Trump. They really are, that they will, and they resorted, from what we understand, with the operation to undermine his presidency. They will use fraudulent and illegal means to do it. Okay. So, but I mean, again, I say do that at your peril. Oh my goodness. Okay, because that would be a wake up call for the countries that the current government is illegitimate, and we haven't been there since 1861.
Right. Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's yes, there hasn't been a civil war for 150 years. 150 years isn't that long. You could start one again. It's a deeply divided country. There are all sorts of lines of division. It's not a north-south division, but there are other lines of division. Particularly over class, and any attempt by the kind of coastal elite to just lord it over everybody else will be resisted. I mean, and so so they tried to steal the election. Then yes, yeah, the consequences would.
Well, I mean, we can show how we can demonstrate how existential this is, because the media tried to scare everyone about COVID. Okay, we're not having rallies because we believe in science. Okay, oh, but you meant Black Lives Matter riots are okay. But anyway, we believe in science, and these red rubes, they don't. But they went to rallies anyway. And and I'm not saying that was a good or a bad idea. I think people have to decide issues of their own safety. That's their sovereign right. Okay. But it shows that, if there's a risk, yeah, there's always a risk to my life, but I'm going to go out and show my support. So that shows you that they make choices about their own safety. Okay. And all the scaremongering from CNN and MSNBC and the New York Times, it just doesn't work with half the country, because those elites don't recognize the legitimacy of Trump supporters. They don't.
Well, that's exactly right, because by saying, "Oh, that's great," if you are involved in riots on behalf of Black Lives Matter or on behalf of Antifa, that's great. We support you on that. But if you go out to demonstrate against lockdowns, then you are an absolute monster, endangering public health and so on. This is transparent. Because of course, as you say, people make their own choices. Whether they want to risk their own lives, then that's it. That's the choice that they make. And though the people who show up at the rallies, they know they're taking a risk, and they want to take that risk. And and they're not going to listen to CNN telling them you must not do this because you are endangering everybody else's life. No, I mean, I wouldn't be here if I wasn't ready to take that risk.
It's really interesting in looking at how the liberal media tried to gaslight the public over COVID. And I've said, you and I have talked about this many times. I think Trump's handling of it was more or less okay from a policy point of view. From an empathy point of view, yeah, I could see faults, but the empathy and policy are very different things. Okay, and essentially, I've made it very clear that the level of lockdowns, I think, was just absolutely disastrous. It was when you compare people not getting medical care, alcoholism, drug abuse, suicide, children not being educated. And I'm sorry, but a lot of American parents aren't very well educated in the first place. They have no business doing that. Okay.
Oh, I think that's right. And that's exactly the point Trump made, which is the correct point, which is the cure can't be worse than the disease. You can't do something that actually creates worse effects than the COVID itself. And clearly, I mean, people are going untreated. Cancer patients, heart disease patients, kidney disease patients are going untreated, while this COVID, which is really not, basically, it's not a devastating illness. As we said
If you're
before.
not in the high risk groups, if you're
Yeah,
not in the high risk groups, yeah.
exactly.
I mean, today I was walking around Moscow after I did my very early crosstalk recording, and there's a sense of proportionality here. Children, I mean, up to like 10 or 12, none of them wear masks. I mean, what's the point? Okay, they don't get it. Okay. But I mean, people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, they're wearing gloves and they're wearing and masks because they're in higher risk groups. Okay, and again, maybe just to give a comparison, nobody's hair is on fire about COVID in Russia. It's a problem that needs to be managed. Okay, it's not politicized. No one's pointing fingers. The thing is that if are therapeutics available? Yes, you
I think
have.
that's the problem. What happened in the United States is unique, and I think again, this was the Democrats. I mean, just like the Democrats who cooked up this fantastic story about Russia stealing the election, they cooked up this ridiculous story that Trump is responsible for the deaths of 230,000 Americans. No other country has done this. No one in France says Macron is responsible for all the French deaths, or Merkel is responsible, even Boris Johnson is responsible. It's a ridiculous argument, but the Democrats made it, and the media have been happy to run with it.
Yeah, well,
idiotic claim.
If okay, to counter the ridiculous Democrat narrative, I don't think that Donald Trump would have had the power to countersend Cuomo's decision to put healthy people into, or people with COVID into rest homes. I don't think the president of the United States has that executive power. Okay?
Exactly. Governors have almost unlimited powers. There's nothing he can do. There's nothing he could do about Governor Whitmer in Michigan. I mean, their powers are limitless. So, but they all get a free pass. Andrew Cuomo gets a free pass, and it's all Trump's fault.
But see, that's when it becomes circular, because but I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Colorado, and I grew up in Colorado when it was a red state. Okay, and the attitude is there's a sense of being the underdog. I mean, people notice this to say what their state is doing. They know very well that the president has nothing to do with it. It has to do with the governor, and depending on how governors reacted, they're beloved and respected, or they're reviled. Okay, for what they did, and particularly for entrepreneurs. If you're a Walmart or you're a McDonald's or KFC, you're going to make it through this. Okay, because you have largesse. Yeah. But if you put everything into a restaurant, a family restaurant, you put your whole life into it. It is your life, your family. You're going to fight for it, okay? But particularly in this, say, that there was that case you and I talked about. It was a restaurant owner. He had curbside and his door was open, and he got a citation because his door was open, not because somebody was in his restaurant, but because his door is open. It's hot.
That's right.
Okay. Those are the people that don't like government. Okay. I'm just trying to do my job here, do my business here. Right. So those are the kind of people that are attracted to Donald Trump. And this realignment that's going on, I think, is really, really fascinating, because it's going to pull the staples out of the Democratic Party, because they already look down upon working people. Now other people are going to start leaving. And if Trump can get rid of these libertarian types, if he can get rid of them, then you can create a transformation that is so desperately needed. Okay, and so instead of the DNC, trying to get the John Kasichs, get these Republicans into the Democratic Party, or into a Biden administration, it's going to be the other way around. It's going to people say, I had enough with your identity politics. Okay, I want to work with the people. Okay, I'm more than my color of my skin. Okay, enough with you guys.
Right. No, I think that's right. I mean, there is a fascinating realignment going on in the United States. I mean, the fact that Trump is as competitive as he is in the industrial Midwest, and that you look at where is the core support is among working people, among working class people. That's his support. And you think, wow, I thought the Democratic Party, this was, these are the people that, were blue collar workers, they would vote for the Democratic Party. Not anymore. So, I mean, that it is
Yeah,
an amazing realignment.
yeah, the golf club Republicans have come a long way, huh?
Right. Well, anyway, we're going to be following the events in the next few days with our customary laser-like focus. Thank you very much, Peter. And remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.